I think graffiti is an important part of hip hop. I don't think hip hop is an important part of graffiti. I think graffiti is its own entity. I think it was definitely a media package that was put together out of convenience for people who try to make money. I think they were able to what they call the 4 elements or 5 elements of hip hop, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I think graffiti is its own thing. I mean, it's all really the only similarity between those things are that they all come out of the city. You know, young kids, disenfranchised kids living in the city who have, you know, talent and skills, but they don't have the backing of the city government or the state or the federal government or even their parents for that matter. And they really had no way to express themselves, and we created our own genre in different ways. I started getting in the subways, taking the train to the city. Probably more when I was going to high school. My first year in high school is when I really started paying more attention to it. Because I would see it in my face on a daily basis, and I would just be intrigued as to how this was done. I always saw it as being an art movement, even though some of it's kind of raw and some of it can be kind of primitive in a way. But the markings and the way it was done, I always found it to be very intriguing, particularly the surface of trains and walls and things of that nature. I didn't really start taking notice of like pieces and things like that until I became more aware of what graffiti was. You know, once I started meeting other writers in my school, and we sat around and talked about it and looked at black books and things like that, then I kind of saw how the hierarchy worked. I mean, you worked your way up from getting a name and a tag, and then getting your bubble letters together, your throw up, and then you would kind of evolve into doing your pieces and then getting up or whatever. And that was the hierarchy. And then once I started becoming aware of that, then I started looking at pieces. You know, that's when I would start paying attention to the Lee Hall cars, Slave, 7 Up, you know, things like that. The whole mystique behind writing graffiti was bombing, getting up, or doing your pieces or whatever, and definitely getting over it, you know, and having the cops, you know, wondering who the hell you were, or everybody else wondering who you were. And, you know, it was kind of like that whole masked man kind of thing. It started to get a lot more difficult. I think it was a lot more easier to paint on a train in 1975 than it was in 1985, to be quite honest with you. When I quit in 83, the trains had already been painted white in a couple of lines. They had already started to put the double fences on the Kew Garden yard. They had already done it to the 7 yard. They were really clamping down. I think slowly but surely, as more and more people stopped writing, it became a lot more easy to clamp everything down. I mean, the last car I saw painted was like in 89, and I think there was a lot less people writing in 89 than it was in 79. The MTA and the city government has pretty much gotten the jump on things, so you now have a vandal squad that has, you know, maybe 40 or 50 police officers, whereas when I was writing, you really had 2 or 4 guys, and that's pretty much it. A lot of people were already quitting. You know, it was a combination between, you know, things getting difficult, increasingly more difficult on the train lines, and then of course what was happening in the art world. You know, we a lot of folks were starting to look at, well, you know, I could become an artist, I could have my stuff hanging in a gallery, I could become a comic book artist, I could do a lot more other things. I don't have to be scribbling on trains and getting my head beaten by policemen. You know, that was definitely one of the things that crossed people's minds. I mean, it is about marking your territory, and it's about taking over a certain area or borough, or so to speak. It is very territorial, and graffiti does emerge from out of the whole gang mentality of the 60s. I mean, that's how it really started out as, and then it developed into what it became. Basically, throw-ups and tags are basically not for the public, they're for ourselves. It's the way we communicate with each other in the graffiti world. When you see tags or throw-ups by different graffiti writers, and it's observed by another graffiti writers, just basically saying, hey, look, I'm here, I'm doing this, I'm bombing. Or if it's an old timer making a comeback, look, I'm back, here I am. Or some new cat trying to flex his skills or whatever, trying to do damage and trying to be up as much as possible. That's basically what it does. It's a communication medium. And people who are not in the graffiti genre or don't write graffiti can't understand that. So to them, it just becomes undistinguishable scribble scrabble, you know. And they pretty much probably don't like it. But if you're in the world of bombing, and that's what you're doing, you don't really give a shit, because that's where your head's at the moment. And so it's either the question's kind of moot. But in terms of pieces, most people dig them.